friends. Welcome back to Common Ground Conversations. I'm Dr. JoNeil Conley, and I'm a coach, a nurse, a speaker. By the time we're done, I'll show you the beginnings of my book. And I am here with my amazing friend, Bonnie Nussbaum. So, Bonnie, tell us.
Yep. I'm Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum. I'm America's kick-ass coach and psychologist, and I do individual coaching with people. I do an everyday free your early morning intuitive guidance, which is just giving you something to think about and
Yeah,
talk about during the course of the day. But JoNeil and I have been doing these for over a
a
year. This
year. I
podcast,
know.
amazing, amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Go
and
go
we
back to your early morning thing because I want to put a plug in for that because that's really, I think, how I found you in the first place.
And I have to laugh about that because this is really a shining example of don't take yourself so seriously.
Yes.
So, over 10 years ago, it's got to be 12, 13 years I've been doing this. I started three different on live events at the
Yeah.
same time. Two of them were really serious and really
Yeah.
important. And this one was just a little fluff thing well, this is the only one that took off. The other
Yeah.
two died, one a fast death and the other one a slower death.
Yeah.
But your early morning intuitive guidance has stuck in there for 12 years, whatever the heck it is. And it's basically whatever moves me in the moment, whether it's a chapter in a book, whether it's something I read on the internet, whether it's a card, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
it's something I pop on every morning on multiple platforms to chat with you about.
But I
Yes.
think that the takeaway for me is something you say every day is a little nugget. I mean, sometimes I like listen with rapt attention, and some days I'm like here listening, and then boom, something just hits me. And it is really open. We've done some things with the divine right timing and all kinds of things, but it's a little bit different than what we do here. But again, I people should listen to that because
Well,
I think
thank
it's
you. I
amazing.
appreciate it.
We,
And when are
Bonnie,
you plugging your book here as we're talking?
oh,
When are you going to
well,
plug your book?
yes, the 1st of May, I've written a book. It's called The
Yay!
Biology of Bullying. And it is written towards nurses, but the strategies and techniques can be available for anyone. Because when I was in nursing school a gazillion years ago, we heard nurses eat their young. Well, now nurses eat their young, their old, and everybody in between. And my doctoral dissertation was on bullying in nursing. And when I got done, I didn't know what to do about it. It validated what I already knew, but it's taken me about 11 years to get to this place where I have tools and strategies and techniques. And the last piece of this whole puzzle was to really acknowledge the neurology that happens when you're bullied, that sense of danger. I'm not
Yeah.
safe. The
Constant heightened attention. Yep.
fight, flight, freeze. And so a lot of this stuff, and I also talk about what organizations need to do because every individual on the planet, I don't care who you are, has been or will be bullied. And what that does is sets up a trauma. It might be a big T, little t trauma, but it's a trauma. And your body remembers it. And what was interesting, and I sent Bonnie a text message because Facebook, I got a hater on Facebook the other day. And
Mhm.
it was about a presentation I was doing, and the person said some negative thing. And I had that. Like, I did. And so
Mhm.
rather than it last me 4 donuts, ice cream cone, and chocolate, I could actually say, I know what's happening
Wait a
in my
minute.
body right now.
Mhm.
Do the breathing, do the tapping, put your tongue up against your mouth, do some pushing and praying or all the things. And
All the things.
it was 5 minutes.
Yay! How
And I
exciting.
and I wrote back to this person. I said, I am more than happy to have a private conversation with you if you believe I did what you said I did, kind of a thing. And then, interestingly enough, her post disappeared.
And she probably kind of disappeared as well.
Well, and the point being is, I study bullying. I talk about bullying. I get bullied.
We
So
still react. Yeah.
people think it's some kind of a character flaw, and it's not.
No.
And it's never about you. It is about the other person. So thank you for letting me talk about it. And we'll,
Yes,
as
that's
the
so
month
exciting.
progresses,
Yes, and
yes.
whatever we can do to promote, because the more that information gets out there, the less power bullying will have.
Yes. And I had my sister was a teacher and she read it. And she was a superintendent of schools. She goes, oh my God, this applies to teachers as well. All of us, any,
Humans.
I was just going to say, humans dealing with humans. which
Yes.
kind of leads us into our conversation for today, because Bonnie
Yes.
was in, I think it was in your Yemming that you were talking about that you'd gone to the No Kings and you felt like you had this desire to validate yourself. I don't know what was the word you wanted to.
Well, the I can't even remember what our prod was for the day. If it was a
Yeah,
quote
I don't.
out of, if it was a card or if it was like a quote out of Tosha Silver or whatever it was. But the gist of it was that we seek like-minded people.
Sure.
And it makes total sense that we're going to be more comfortable around people who think like us. But in doing so, we so limit our growth.
Hmm.
But we need structures that allow us to know how to gracefully deal with those who differ in their opinions. So one of the things that I wrote down was we oftentimes subconsciously seek
Yeah.
agreement for our opinions.
Hmm.
So we'll say something and then we'll go, "Don't you agree?" Or
Yeah.
wouldn't you say so too? Or
Yeah.
of course, we put something in there that tries to suck people into our way of thinking.
Yeah. And because I think we want the other person to see that, oh yeah, what you think is right and that's good. And I should
We have
probably,
value and yeah.
yes, and validation. I think that's a
Mhm.
key word too. And I think the strength of character comes when you can disagree. And
Yes.
you can, and that's where this whole YouTube channel started with, was the ability to believe differently, which is what
Mhm.
we've always, both of us have
Mhm.
said, but find the common ground.
Yes, and avoid the tactics that we've all been trained to do. How
Hmm.
many of us were told, if someone pushes you, you push them right back?
Yeah.
What about rising above? What about,
Hmm.
and that was one of the things that I loved I mean, Appleton is not that big a
Yeah.
city. We're under 100,000 people. There were probably 5,000 at the No Kings March. But as
Hmm.
I was looking at the signs, you could see a difference between those who have made a transition into um, having their opinion, but allowing others' opinions as well. And there were
Yeah.
those who hadn't quite made that transition yet.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
What was this? How could you tell?
So many of the signs were about we're all one. Um, that which you do to the least of my brother, that you do
Yeah.
unto me. Um, the link arms and march kind of a feel. It had that sense of I am a steward of my neighbors.
Hmm. Okay.
There were others where it was more derogatory,
Yeah.
more inflammatory, that kind of stuff. So be it. And then there were the people who believed differently, who were around the perimeter,
Yeah.
and just the one that always drives me crazy, because this has happened multiple times in multiple places, is the person in the great big pickup truck who has
Yeah.
to put it into neutral and rev the engine
Yeah.
to blow smoke all over the
Yeah.
people who are speaking their truth.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
Fine, you can speak your truth. Sometimes at some of them there's people on the other side of the street with the other signs. Fine, absolutely fine, speak your
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Something you also said too was the us and them and we and what that how did we get to, how did we get so far and and I believe there's extremes, but there's so much many more of us that are in the middle.
Exactly, and we've talked about this before on here, that if you put a label on somebody
Hmm.
and you have this label and that label, let's just say, liberal and conservative,
Yeah.
people make assumptions that
Yeah.
those boxes are more different than they are alike, which is untrue.
Correct.
Untrue. There may
Correct.
be, I think you and I have a ton of stuff where we have common ground, a ton
Yes.
of common ground, even if someone would be putting different labels on us.
And that I think has been just the joy of this journey for me, and being able to tell people, it's not as black and white as you think it is. And one of the earliest, we used some of the stuff from the Braver Angels organization, which if you don't follow them, they're amazing. They have wonderful uh, chances to learn strategies and tools, because I think we lack tools to.
Yes, I would agree. And that's another, let me find it here. Let me put in a plug for Taking the War
Yes.
Out of Our Words, The Art of
Yeah.
Powerful Non-Defensive Communication. This stuff is so helpful. And her daughter said that this is her sister
Yeah.
because the whole time the daughter was growing up, mom was working on this book.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is an amazing book, and my guess is it hasn't gotten out as far as it needs to, but right now is prime time.
Oh.
We need tools for how do we talk to someone who believes differently than we do? And
Mm-hmm.
how do we not throw our hands up and say, ah, I just won't deal with them? Sometimes they're family.
Yeah. And I also feel we lack a shared destination at times. And I
Hmm.
think if we could get even a vision, whatever
Who
that looks
are
like.
we?
Yeah.
Who are we? And
Well said.
if we're titled the United States of America, who is that?
Yeah.
Who is
Yeah.
that? I mean, to me right now that title is pretty ironic.
No,
It's
for
pretty
sure.
ironic.
For sure. For
But we
sure.
can figure out how to live into that. We can grow into that.
Well, and if people would just look at people as people,
Hmm.
and that's the Arbinger Institute. That's their main teaching point. Have an outward mindset and see people as people. That doesn't mean you don't agree all of the things, but one of the strategies they use in outward mindset is they do an exercise where you put back to back. You sit back to back, and you kind of think about that other person. And at one point, early on in the training, they lead you to believe that both people have to turn their chairs and face each other, where really only one person has to turn their chair. Only one. Because chances are you're not going to change that person right this minute.
Hmm.
But if you can change yourself, and we all know bullying or any of this stuff, the only person you can control is yourself.
Right. And as you control yourself, think about a tug of war. If
Hmm.
you do this, yeah, you're going to have a war. If one of you drops the rope, the
Yeah.
other one's going to have a really hard time continuing the war,
Yeah. And, I think it's going to be interesting how history writes all of this, you
isn't it?
know, and how it shakes out and how it,
And and let's hope it's accurate
yeah,
because so much of American
yeah.
history is not accurate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even within families where there are differences of opinions.
Hmm.
Um, my own daughter and her husband have different religious beliefs, and different ways of, and I'm singing Jesus loves me to the kid on the grandma and all this. But my daughter has come to this place where they are allowing as parents, yes, but we've got this little person here who we can
Hmm.
expose to
A
think.
variety of things.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And so that was interesting watching their dynamics as they came to that, because it's been a little bit of a tug of war kind of a thing. And
Hmm.
but they had to work it out themselves, because the rescuer in me would want to have therapy with them till they all figured it out, but I let them figure it out themselves.
And in doing so, they now have a template for how they can work through other things that come up. Because I don't care who you are. You put two, three, four people in a house,
Yeah.
there's going to be some discord.
Mm-hmm.
If we can frame that discord as our opportunity, these are the
Yeah.
opportunities for us to
Yeah.
grow. That's
Yeah.
fabulous.
Well, and if you drop the right or wrong and just say different, I
Yeah.
think you at
Yes.
least open the possibility
Right.
that there
And
isn't.
somewhere in there, I think the ego question comes
Yeah.
into play. Like, who am I to say
Yeah.
that someone else's path isn't the ideal path for them to
For
learn what they
them.
came here to learn. If someone's path, I'll just pick one that most of us would say, oh my God, involves drug addiction.
Oh, okay.
What if that is the ideal divine path for them to learn what they need
Mm-hmm.
to learn?
Yeah. Wasn't that Neil Walsh book we were talking about the little soul in the sun or whatever? It does talk about that exact same thing. We're
Mhm.
here to learn something. We're on this
Yes.
miraculous, wonderful journey.
And we
And
can learn from everybody.
yeah, and we can learn from the hurts and we can learn from the highs and we can learn from the lows
Mhm.
and all that part of it.
And sometimes the hurts are our best teachers.
I
They
can
are our
only pray.
best.
I can only pray for
Because,
myself.
and what I oftentimes say to clients, like I can't tell you over 40 plus years of doing this kind of work, how many people I've had come in who said, my spouse just filed for divorce on me, I just got fired,
Yeah,
whatever. And oftentimes, if I know them well enough, I will say, congratulations. And
yeah,
they're like,
yeah,
what?
yeah,
And then I will say to them, 1 year from now,
yeah,
I'm going to ask you again, and I'll make a note in my
yeah,
chart, and I will
yeah.
ask them again. What have you learned from this? What are the
Mm-hmm.
positive things that have come out of this? What are the gifts in this
Mm-hmm.
painful period of time?
And it doesn't, and saying that doesn't diminish the pain of the moment.
Right.
And I think that's really crucial. It's like
Yes.
it hurts so bad right now. I'm gonna believe you, but I can't see it right now.
No,
I
and I will say, I will carry the belief for us until you can carry it again for
yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we got down that tangent, but we
Go
did.
where we're meant to go, right?
Yeah. So do you have your birthday month this coming up, correct? Or did you have it?
May.
Oh,
May is
May.
new.
All right. I
Yes.
was gonna say because I was thinking you would be having your coaching specials pretty soon.
Yep, I usually start them in April, middle of April, so that people have time to figure out if they want to do that or not. But and I set it up so that you can do a 3 session package. 3 sessions to figure out, do I even like this woman? Do
Mm-hmm.
I even believe
Mm-hmm.
anything that she tells me? Whatever. Yeah.
Well, I can speak
Again,
from personal experience. It is well worth it is well worth it because that's one thing about coaches. Coaches need a coach. That's all there
absolutely
is
so.
to it.
Absolutely
And
so.
for me, I'm actually offering a bullyitis assessment. It's a 3 question assessment because I think people don't realize that the trauma is still buried inside there. And
They
they're
might not even realize that what they experienced
yeah,
was bullying.
correct, correct.
I'll tell you something from my doctoral dissertation that blew my mind. At 2 different points in the survey, they were asked, were you sexually abused as a child?
Oh, yeah.
Another question was, did you ever have anything happen to you in a sexual way that you didn't want before the age of 18? Do you want
Hello.
to know how many answered no to that first question and yes to the second question? It's the
Oh,
same thing,
yeah, yeah.
but they did not frame it as abuse.
And there's also a spectrum. Granted, the trauma's there, but some people are rude. They really are. They do or they say, kind of a thing. And I think bullying has an intentionality. Like it's intentional towards you. People run into a rude person in their
Or they
world
have a
and
bad day.
have a bad day.
Yeah,
But a bully is intentional. They're going to do something to you and then a narcissist, they're a whole nother category of people. But it's trauma. And I guess it does relate to kind of what we're talking about now because some of our traumas come into our conversations, come into our world, and we respond to people based on something that may have happened a long, long time ago.
right. So we look like we're overreacting, but our trauma history informs our reactivity
Yeah. Yeah. And
big
so
time.
having that understanding, and, this all started with Uncle Henry or Uncle Albert, whoever it was at the Thanksgiving
Whoever it
dinner. But it doesn't matter if it's a family or a coworker or somebody at your kid's school or any, a close friend, all of those kind of things. We we tend to say it's a character defect when it's something we can work through. And I
Right.
think that's a piece that we need to recognize.
I think another piece we need to recognize is that there are individual differences between humans. So
Oh,
there are people who coming down the chute are very sensitive beings.
yeah.
And there are
Yes.
other people who are just little tanks going through the world and not much is going to, one isn't better than the other.
No,
They're just
no.
different. And as we learn who someone is,
Mm-hmm.
to be respectful of, it doesn't mean you have to tiptoe around on eggshells. But
Mm-hmm.
if you know someone tends to be a more sensitive person, you may not make the crass, rude comment that you'd typically make.
Mm-hmm. Well, and going back to the very start of this, when we were talking about having to justify our opinion or convince other people and all of that, you don't need to. You're
Mhm.
okay just the way you are, believing what you have every right to believe what you believe.
And I
And
think
no,
a piece underneath there is how confident are we in who we are?
oh,
Are we
wow.
grounded? Are we solid? Do we
That's all.
know what we believe? And it doesn't matter what other people think about our beliefs.
Yeah.
We can calmly and respectfully speak our truth.
Well, and because I've been around the planet a few more times than you have, around the sun, I don't think I appreciated that until late, until the last 15, 20 years, perhaps. I think, and I think it's possible to feel that way earlier on in your life. I just didn't. I didn't know how. I didn't know how to get there. And so I think there's a lot of people out there that are struggling and fussing and fighting when a little bit of help can get you to the next spot, can
And a
get you.
little bit of less ego and more, I need help here.
Yeah.
I'm floundering. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to deal with this with you. I need some help here.
hmm
Can
and
we,
a willingness to know
and a
that it can be,
willing.
and a willingness to know that it doesn't have to be this constant fight. That's that
No,
you,
and let the guard down.
yeah.
Brene Brown, her work, A plus.
hmm
Be willing to be vulnerable. Be
hmm
willing to be soft. Be willing to show the underbelly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, going back to the world that we live in right now, people are very afraid to do that.
Absolutely so.
It would,
If the person you're dealing with is a narcissist, don't do that.
oh God,
Clearly,
no, no,
don't do
no.
that.
Yeah,
But with
no.
your neighbors and your friends and your family, and if you're having a tussle over something, there was one in the book here that I just thought was awesome. Was a little girl whose brother liked to punch her, and so she'd punch him back. And at
Yeah.
one point, she looked at him just before he punched her, and she said, "I don't like it when you hit me. It's not
Yeah.
in my nature, and I don't want to hit you back." And he
Yes.
never hit her
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. Yeah. Out of the mouth of babes.
Yep. And whether he
Yeah.
did or he didn't wasn't the point. The point was she spoke her truth.
Yes, and speaking your truth is exactly what started this, where your truth is, this is how I believe. And
Hmm.
I don't need to fight you for it. I don't
Oh,
need
and
to,
if you believe differently, we can hold space for that.
yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's an okay place to be.
Yes. And to be curious. Well, tell me why you believe that. How did you come around to that? Learn something. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean you have to change your view.
Yeah.
Learn
Because
something.
it makes the planet and our relationships and families a heck of a lot better.
Yes.
A heck
Yes.
of a lot better. So what you got to say in conclusion here, Miss Bonnie?
If I could wish anything for all of us, it would be that we would do what I just did. Take a breath, take a pause before we fire off a comment or we send out that anonymous shitty comment,
Yeah.
whatever. Take a breath. Is this going to add anything to our world? Is this going to help anybody? Is
hmm
this is this merely designed to make me feel superior, or is there some value in putting this out there?
Yeah.
Take a breath. You?
And because that take a breath is knowing that your nervous system and your neurology thinks it's a threat when that happens and thinks it's danger, Will Robinson, danger. And I think knowing that happen, that amygdala hijack that happens, and I was sharing a conversation with a lady writing the bad post about me on Facebook, and I immediately went into this. And it took me just a few minutes to say, that's my neurology. That's not me. That's my
Yes.
animal instinct. And
Yes.
and and I'm all about the pause. There
Yes.
is between, what is it, between stimulus and response, there's a pause. And that would
Yes.
be
And the more we
the
can
best,
widen it out, the better off we're
the
going to be.
best possible.
And there's so
Well,
many tools, folks. There's so many tools that can help you learn to take that breath, whether it's tapping, whatever. There's tons of tools.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And know that it's like I said, it's our nervous system that we don't pay enough attention to our nervous system.
Hmm.
It's the
Hmm.
working all the time, 24/7, and knowing that that automatic thing happens, and then you just have to stop for a second.
Hmm.
And it's not a sign of weakness. I think I've told the story about my friend Pam who always just go, because she would just be taking that second to regain and to center and all of those things. But we appreciate all of those of you who are watch our videos and who
Yes.
subscribe to either one of our channels where you see
Yeah.
this.
Post questions, ask us things. We'd love to start a conversation with you about this stuff.
Absolutely, because you know what? It's better when you're in common. When you,
Absolutely. And human beings are herd animals.
yes,
We are herd animals. We need each other.
yes. So we'll see everybody in a couple weeks.
Sounds good. Bye, everybody.